Hi everyone, wanted to make a quick video here. I'm happy to be back. As you have probably seen, there's been no videos for almost 6 months roughly, but basically the markets have been going down, down and more down, so there really wasn't a whole lot to do. Got stopped out of everything. But the positive of all that down action is it looks like we've got potentially a very strong bottom and a number of IPO software stocks that look like they present some very compelling risk-reward scenarios, and that's kind of what we're all about. So as I mentioned, today is January 7th, just to put some timeliness to it, and let's get into it. So this is Huya. This is currently my number one holding. It is a video game streaming service or platform in the Chinese market. They're the number one company in that industry there. And let's go over some reasons of why this is interesting. So let's get to the next slide. So let's start with the chart. A company IPO'd in the US roughly mid-May of 2018, and this is of course happening over here. Shot off like a rocket, and it was kind of all downhill. But I really think it was a case of association in terms of just being a Chinese stock, and of course all stocks in general have been really, really hammered since October. So, but this is where we're at now, and what we've seen over the past couple days is some very strong basing action, and of interest, you're actually getting it at almost near the original IPO point. So now what's happened along the way, the company has turned profitable, at least the last quarter. They continued to turn in triple-digit revenue growth, which is really phenomenal. And more importantly, I think the whole video game streaming, esports, whatever you want to call it, has become or is turning into a very compelling genre or industry, basically. And of course, Huya is the number one leader in that industry for the Chinese market, which is arguably one of the largest markets in the world for it. So let's get into some data points now that you've seen the chart and you see what's going on here. I do want to point out that we are seeing some above average volume the past couple of days, which is again reinforces the price action that we're seeing. One other thing to note on the bottom here, this is the trailing 6-month return, which is a very good proven indicator. In this case, we've at least gotten back to break even. So this is not the normal situation where we want to see it, all the way up to here, and then buying on a breakout. And that's mostly because of the significant down action in the market, but it has produced some pretty compelling valuations. So let's get into the more fundamentals on this stock. There we go. So data points, in my opinion, of course my opinion only, this Huya presents a very good risk-reward. One thing I do want to call out here is you always want to make sure you're using a 20% stop, and that's a 20% trailing stop. So in other words, if the stock's at 100, you want to be at 80. If it goes to 200, you want to still move it up along the way, and basically you're going to be at 160. So that was based on some paper that I saw, and certainly looking back on my own experience in the markets, if I had kept to that rule, both in stocks and crypto, would have been a massive, massive improvement. So something I would definitely recommend that you do, because you want to play the risk reward, but that's exactly what it is. There's always risk in any type of investment, and the 20% stop will force you to get out without, let you hopefully capture the upside without too much downside. So Huya, as I mentioned, it's the number one live gaming streamer in China. It's similar to Twitch, which you may or may not have heard about, but Amazon bought that company out for nearly $1 billion in 2014. But Huya, in this case, has significantly larger potential, just on the merits of the size of the Chinese population in general. Other points, just turned profitable last quarter, grew revenues over 110% last quarter. I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe from my own research anyway, there are one of, if not the fastest growing Chinese internet or tech stocks out there, and that's pretty phenomenal. So that's one of the things that we're certainly looking for, is riding a solid trend, and of course that solid trend is being proven by substantial revenue growth. They're expected to grow, I believe, at 50% next year, may slow down to 30% in 2020. Excuse me, but regardless, it's a very good aspect to look, proof, if you will, that they are riding a very solid trend. The revenues hard to make up. Basically, earnings can be manipulated, but revenue kind of speaks for itself. One of the other things that really turned my opinion, I wasn't actually that excited about video game streaming necessarily, but one of the things that I saw was that a recent article, roughly half of the top 5 YouTube earners in 2018 were streaming video gamers. So that was kind of new, but it makes sense when I started thinking about it, because games themselves present low cost but very immersive worlds for entertainment. So you're kind of combining social networking plus video gaming, basically. And recently NVIDIA came out with a new graphics card, for example, that can do real-time ray tracing, meaning you're getting photorealistic generation of images, or video really, but live as it's happening. So it's pretty phenomenal, and when you compare that to the cost of producing a movie, for example, and of course all the risk that's involved on the movie side to create something similar in terms of the visual effects, it's a pretty phenomenal bang for the buck. And in this case, one of the things that I'm looking at, I read a book called Blitzscaling, which was by Reid Hoffman, I'm not sure I say his name, but co-founder of PayPal and then co-founder of LinkedIn. But he talked about the whole concept of blitzscaling and why, what you're looking for and why it pays off. But basically it's software, because you want to be doing digits and rather than, or bits I should say, rather than atoms, so to speak. But the whole point was that the rapid growth, even though they're losing money, if there's a lock-in effect or a network effect that can be had, you want to capture that, because once you lock in with that network effect as a platform, then you ride that for a very, very long time. Examples, of course, are eBay, and of course YouTube is another example. I mean, you could start a new YouTube competitor with your own platform, and maybe it's got all the same features, but the point is you don't have the traffic, and without people to consume the content means people that produce the content don't want to post there, and vice versa. And the same reason that eBay has kept such a lock on their market. And so what we're seeing here is in this, with the live gaming thing, I believe it has some pretty strong network effects. And I think it'll be a very profitable long-term platform. It's a new trend, so that's something to be looking at as well. So that's the quick summary on it. Take a look and see what you think, but I think it's looking very interesting at a minimum. So hope this information helps, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.